She said, "I can't be with someone who has no future." That's what she said. Then she grabbed her purse, turned her back on me, and walked out of our apartment like the last 4 years meant nothing. The sound of the door closing was so soft, it almost felt polite. But it wasn't. It was final. I remember standing there with the spatula still in my hand, the smell of garlic butter and rosemary in the air. Dinner was almost ready. Chicken Alfredo, her favorite. I'd spent half an hour prepping it after work, thinking tonight would be the night I finally told her about the job offer. The one that would change everything instead. I got dumped in my own kitchen. Her name was Rachel, 27, sharp as glass. Beautiful in that carefully put together way that looks like effort disguised as effortless. And me, Daniel, 24, data entry guy at a logistics firm, grinding through spreadsheets and systems that didn't care whether I existed. She said she loved my calm, steady nature when we met. Over time, steady turned into stagnant. When she said those words, "I can't be with someone who has no future," it wasn't just a breakup. It was a verdict. I turned off the stove. Steam hissed up as I lifted the pan off the heat. "Rachel," I said, quiet, calm, holding on to the last shred of self-control I had left. "Can you at least tell me what's really going on?" She folded her arms, her body language rehearsed, her tone clipped. "What's going on is that I'm 27, Dan. I want a husband, a real plan, a future. You've been stuck in the same job for 3 years. No promotions, no ambition. I can't build a life on maybe someday." I blinked. "You think I'm not trying?" She laughed, a short, humorless sound. "Trying doesn't pay bills or buy houses. My sister's husband just got promoted to VP. Melissa's boyfriend is running his own startup, and you're still doing data entry." That one stung. Because she wasn't wrong. I was still doing data entry, but not for lack of trying. What she didn't know was that for months, I'd been in the middle of an exhausting interview process with Tech Solutions International, a major software firm in London. 6 rounds, 3 technical exams, 2 managerial calls, 1 final offer email that had been sitting unread in my inbox for a week, waiting for the right time to tell her. I looked at her, then not the woman I'd loved, but someone who'd already checked out. Her suitcase was by the door. Packed, planned. This wasn't impulsive. This was execution. "So this is it," I said quietly. "It has to be," she said. Her voice softened a little, maybe out of guilt. "I can't waste any more years hoping you'll change." I just nodded. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from the strange calm that comes after a storm you didn't see coming. "Okay," I said. She frowned. "That's it. You're not even going to fight for us." "Fight for what?" I asked. "You've already decided I lost." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Wow, that just proves I'm making the right choice." Then she left. No slam, no yelling, just the soft click of the door, as if she didn't want to wake the neighbors while ending my life. I stood there for a long minute. The chicken on the stove had gone cold. The sauce started to thicken, sticking to the pan. It smelled like burnt cream and endings. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and stared at the email again. Greater than subject. Offer of employment. Tech Solutions International. London greater than position. Senior systems architect salary. £95,000 plus relocation package. I read it twice, then 3 times. The words blurred a little, but not from the screen light. I thought of telling her. I thought of what she'd say, how she'd smile, hug me, cry, apologize, tell me she didn't mean it. Maybe she'd start planning our move before I even packed a bag. But no. She'd made her choice before knowing the full story. And I wasn't about to rewrite it for her. So I clicked reply, and I typed, "Thank you for the offer. I'm delighted to accept the position." Then I hit send. It was 11:47 p.m. I stared at the screen until the confirmation popped up. Then I closed my laptop and finished my cold dinner alone that night. I blocked her on everything: phone, email, Instagram, even I didn't need her playlists haunting me. She said I had no future, so I decided to build one without her. 3 days after she walked out, I started hearing the echoes. Not from Rachel directly, she was too proud for that, but from mutual friends, half concerned, half curious. The kind of texts that start with "Hey man, just checking in," and end with "So, are you okay?" Apparently, she'd told everyone I took the breakup badly, that I was lost, unmotivated, and spiraling. The irony made me laugh out loud. I'd spent the last 72 hours finalizing visa paperwork, coordinating with HR, and checking London apartments on Rightmove. But sure, spiraling. Day 5. She showed up. It was a Saturday morning, sunlight spilling through the blinds, my apartment already half packed. Boxes labeled neatly in Sharpie. My flight was 3 weeks away. There was a knock sharp, impatient. Then another. When I opened the door, Rachel was standing there with her sister, Emma, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Rachel's makeup was perfect, but her eyes were red. She held herself like she wanted me to think she was composed, but her hands were trembling. "Daniel," she said flatly. "I came for my stuff." I stepped aside, gesturing to the boxes stacked neatly by the entryway. "It's all here, labeled and sorted. You can check if you want." She blinked. "You packed everything already?" "Yeah," I said. Didn't seem like there was much point keeping it around. Emma sighed and crossed her arms. "Seriously, Dan, you couldn't let her in for 5 minutes. Real mature." I smiled small, polite. "You can tell her everything she needs to know is right there." Rachel stared at me like she didn't recognize who she was looking at. Maybe she didn't. 3 years of her life, she said, later wasted. She said it loud enough for me to hear as she walked out with the boxes. Good. Let her feel the weight of her own words. I went back inside, closed the door, and sat at my desk. My email pinged with a confirmation from HR. "Your relocation package has been approved. Departure date confirmed, April 27. Everything was falling into place, quietly, smoothly, and Rachel had no idea. By day 10, the rumors had evolved. She sent an email to my work address, the one she still had from when I used to print her discount codes on the office printer. "Daniel, I heard you quit your job. Please don't do anything stupid. I know this breakup hit you hard, but self-destruction isn't the answer. If you need help finding new work, I can ask around." The condescension burned. She genuinely believed I'd quit in despair, that I was sitting in the dark, surrounded by takeout boxes and regret, while she was the one with her life together. I didn't reply. I just smiled and archived the email. By day 14, she found out, not officially through whispers. My friend Carlos, who'd been sworn to secrecy, had a few too many drinks and told the guys at the bar about my move. "Dan's going to London," he'd said, raising his glass. 6-figure job. The man finally made it. Someone who knew Rachel overheard that night. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in months. "Bro, Rachel's freaking out. She's asking where you're moving. She thought you were unemployed." I didn't respond. The next day, I got a text from Jane, one of Rachel's close friends. "Jane, hey, she's really upset. Maybe you should talk to her." "Me? About what?" "Jane, she says you're making a mistake. That you're doing this out of spite." "Me, according to her, I have no future. Can't really make mistakes when you're going nowhere, right?" Jane didn't reply after that. 2 weeks before my flight, my manager threw me a farewell party at our favorite bar. It was small, just a few co-workers, beers, laughter. Someone posted a photo. Someone else tagged me. That was enough. By the next morning, Rachel knew everything. She messaged one of my co-workers on LinkedIn. "Priya, the analyst who sat next to me, told me later. Your ex asked if you were really moving," Priya said. "Wanted to know your title, your salary." Weird energy, honestly. I just told her I didn't discuss other people's business. I laughed. "You didn't tell her, right?" Priya smirked. "Nope," I said. "New phone, who dis—" Still, that didn't stop Rachel. She found a new number and started texting me. Again, paragraphs of revisionist history. Can't believe you didn't tell me about London. We could have worked things out if I'd known. You always keep secrets, Daniel. I was trying to motivate you. Motivate me. That word hit harder than I expected. She hadn't wanted to motivate me, she wanted to fix me. To mold me into her idea of a successful man. If she couldn't see my effort when I was grinding in silence, she didn't deserve to celebrate when it paid off. I blocked the new number the next day. She showed up at my building. It was late afternoon. I was finalizing my shipment inventory when I heard the knock. Then another. Then her voice. Daniel, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Through the door, I said calmly. No, we don't. You can't just leave the country without telling me. Watch me. You owe me that much after 4 years. I paused. You ended those 4 years, remember? Silence. Then, softer. I was trying to motivate you. I almost laughed. If you'd known about the job, I said, you'd have what? Stayed for the money. No answer. Just quiet breathing. Glad we cleared that up, I said, and called building security. They escorted her out while she threw one last look over her shoulder. It wasn't anger anymore, it was panic. The realization that her narrative had collapsed the next morning. I opened Instagram. Rachel had posted a story. White text on a black background. Some people hide their success to hurt others. Silence can be the cruelest manipulation. Her mum commented, "You okay, sweetie?" Rachel replied, "Just processing betrayal, Mum. Betrayal." The mental gymnastics were gold medal level. Apparently, my success wasn't real, it was a revenge plot. Let her believe it. Meanwhile, I was focused on flight confirmations, visa stamps, and the feeling of finally getting somewhere that night. I poured myself a drink, opened my suitcase, and smiled at the packed clothes. I wasn't running away. I was moving forward, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Thursday morning arrived with a strange calm, the kind that settles before a storm or a big life change. My apartment was bare, save for the essentials, a small suitcase, my laptop, and a few things I couldn't be bothered to pack. The air smelled faintly of lavender from the candle I'd lit to clear out the residual tension. Rachel's energy. Her words, her expectations. I was ready. The Uber arrived at 2 p.m., glinting in the early spring sunlight. I loaded my bags in the trunk, checked my boarding pass, and sat in the back seat, letting the hum of the city fade behind me. It was quiet, peaceful. My phone buzzed, once muted, and I ignored it. Then a screech of tires made me glance up. Rachel. She jumped out of a dark sedan parked on the curb, perfectly dressed, as if she'd been summoned for a job interview rather than showing up at the airport of the man she'd just dumped. Her heels clicked against the pavement, and she shouted my name. Daniel. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. The driver kept his eyes on the road, waiting, tense. Going somewhere? She called, urgency in her voice, like she'd just realized the clock had run out. I opened the window slightly. Yup, London. Her face fell for a split second. Then she tried the classic line, I know about the job. The 6-figure offer. You could have told me months ago. I leaned back. I was going to tell you when the time was right. But the time was never going to be right for someone who already decided I had no ambition. Her eyes widened. You've been planning this for months. You kept it a secret. Exactly. I wanted certainty before making you a part of my plans. But you already made your decision. This isn't my story to rewrite. She staggered a bit, like the words were heavy bricks she didn't expect to catch. We could have planned together, like we planned a breakup. I shook my head, smiling faintly. Nah, I'm good. Then she tried to step into the Uber. The driver looked at her, confused. I looked at her. Just me, please. Ma'am, step back. Her voice dropped, almost pleading. Daniel, don't do this. We can work it out. Transfer what? I asked, calm. You work retail. And last I checked, I have a degree. I can find work in London. Good luck with that. Her face tightened. I could almost see the gears grinding in her head. The realization that she no longer had control, that her assumptions about my ambition, my career, my future were completely wrong, that she'd judged me, dismissed me, and left without the full story. The driver started to pull away. I took a deep breath, letting the city blur past the window. Rachel yelled something, but it faded as the distance grew. Her silhouette shrank on the curb, framed by sunlight and frustration. For the first time in years, I felt light, unburdened, free. The flight was smooth. Business class, of course, thanks to the relocation package that had kept me motivated long before Rachel ever doubted me. I posted one photo from the lounge, my suitcase, a boarding pass, and a skyline in the background. Minimal caption, new chapter. Within minutes, my phone buzzed like crazy. Messages from friends, co-workers, even a few distant acquaintances, curiosity, congratulations, and some dramalist questions about the ex. I turned on airplane mode, poured some champagne, and watched the clouds. 3 months later, London was everything I imagined and more. My office was challenging but rewarding. My team brilliant and supportive. My flat small but mine. My weekends filled with new experiences, friends, and quiet nights I could enjoy without drama. I'd already been promoted once, and dating someone amazing, a pediatrician with a sharp sense of humor, who laughed at all the irony of my story. Meanwhile, Rachel's adventure hadn't gone as planned. She managed to follow me for 3 weeks. Tourist visa only, no work permits, constant rejection, expensive hostels, instant noodles, and a few humiliating attempts to get into my office building, only to be turned away by security. I heard about it through mutual friends, the same ones who were delighted in the drama from the beginning. She posted vaguely about closure and self-discovery. But London is expensive and unforgiving when you're unprepared. 3 weeks later, she was back in the US, broke, humiliated, and dating someone who promised quick crypto gains. The irony wasn't lost on me. She said I had no future. Yet here I was, living the life she claimed I couldn't have. Thriving in a city I'd always wanted to explore. Surrounded by people who supported me. I often thought about that kitchen moment, the spatula in my hand, the chicken Alfredo cooling on the stove, her suitcase by the door. That single, quiet decision to let her walk away had been the catalyst for everything. Sometimes, the hardest, most humbling moments in life are also the ones that set you free. And Rachel, she wanted me to level up. I did. Not for her, not on her timeline, and certainly not for her approval. I did it for myself. Sophie and I toast 2 new chapters over overpriced cocktails, laughing at the absurdity of the past. I sometimes scroll through old messages, smiling at the ghosts of someone who thought she could define my worth. The final lesson. You can't force someone to see your ambition. You can't convince them to be supportive when they only see your life as a project. Sometimes, the best way to prove yourself is to leave quietly, work hard, and let the results speak louder than words. And if someone told you that you had no future, well, maybe it's just a sign you're meant to build one without them.